to say to all the fans of WLW, y'all keep on supporting this organization because they're going to be the next big thing.
Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of WLW Amplify. I'm CT Harrison, along with my partner, my co-host, Martin Kadich.
Hey, how's it going, CT? It's a good day to be here.
It's a good day. It feels good. It's actually hot outside today.
Right. It's like summer and spring, so you can't ask for any better than that.
All right, I'll go with that. What a big week in wrestling.
Right. I mean, a roller coaster all the way.
Roller coaster. You had lots of highs. Of course, AEW had their pay-per-view.
That's right.
Episode 3, Chapter 3 of The Undertaker's Last Ride aired on the WWE Network this morning. Fantastic. Loved it myself. And then, of course, earlier in the week, tragedy.
Yeah.
A former WWE Superstar, WWE half of Crime Time, and I believe they were WWE Tag-Team Champions at one time. Shad Gaspard
Great
was
man.
overtaken by a wave in an undertow while waiting to be rescued after making sure that the rescue team took his 10-year-old son first. So in my opinion, he goes down swinging as a hero, plain and simple.
Definitely a fighter to the end.
So Shad Gaspard, thanks.
Thanks for being a great human being, too, because
absolutely.
the stories abound.
Absolutely. Moving on. It's I'm messing up right over here. Anyhow, moving on. Let's talk about. Tell you watched AEW.
I watched the show. I thought it was a great show. I mean, you got your shows are going down right now with the people who work for the company are the only people in the crowd. But even in that instance, they were hyper. They were loud. The show was great, in my opinion. A lot of excellent matches. A lot of stuff to talk about. A whole lot to unwrap around it. You had the debut of Brian Cage last night.
Nice.
And he come into the battle, the ladder match there, and just completely destroyed everyone after everybody jumped on him.
Cody Rhodes is your new TNT champion.
Exactly. That was a wonderful match, and Mike Tyson did not go unnoticed in that match.
How do you not notice Mike Tyson anywhere?
Well, I can guarantee you, if anybody else that's out there watched it, he definitely made himself known to Jake the Snake Roberts. And while you didn't get the traditional Mike Tyson knockout punch, it was only because Mr. Roberts did not want to get close enough to get that fist.
Would you?
No, not even with him at his age now. No.
Wow. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Right.
So I didn't go there, but I'll look forward to it. I'll look at it and see how.
Another great match was Sheeta versus Nyla Rose. I mean,
Yeah.
There's not a real roof on Daly's place. It's more of like a pavilion, but they knocked that pavilion off last night. It was a great match.
Good. What else this week?
We had the Undertaker thing.
Have you watched any of that series?
Not yet. I do not have the network, so
okay.
I don't really get to watch a whole lot of the network stuff. We ended up having to shift funds, so.
Yeah, it happens.
But I mean, we're still waiting on Otis to cash in on his Money in the Bank win, which I'm excited to see how that's going to go down because there's so many other, it opens up a whole world when a guy is a tag team wins a guaranteed title shot. So it's like I'm excited the most about that. I want to see where the cash in comes because in my opinion, there's 3 places you can cash in if you're him, and that's you can cash in for them tag titles, or you could cash in for the world championship, or he's got Mandy Rose there on his wing right now. So
how can you go wrong with Mandy Rose?
Right, I mean, he could, give a little Valentine's Day present a little bit late and cash in for her. I mean, let her go after the women's title. You never know.
Okay.
So many options. Other than that, I haven't really seen too much. I watched World League Wrestling, Thursday night, and I thought that was a great show, a nice throwback. You get to see some of the guys from the past do their thing, and I believe it was Steve, Superstar Steve was in that. And I always love to go back and watch Superstar Steve wrestle because he's got all the tools that it takes to be a champion. He's a great wrestler. He's a great character in the ring. So, it's always great when you get to go back and see those guys, any chance you get. Not to mention, you had Matt Murphy and Larry the Axe Hennig on commentary, and always a pleasure to
talk about a legend.
Right. I had to listen to the commentary extra close,
There's been a lot of legends that have come through World League Wrestling. Not just because of Harley, but a lot of people who came because of what World League Wrestling is and was.
Well, and especially in that generation, it's a testament to the man that Harley was. That he was able to train all these people who went on to become champions and, great wrestlers.
Including our guest today.
Yes.
Who will be on here shortly. Trevor Murdoch will be joining us, who is a former champion at World League Wrestling a few times over, as well as now a current NWA Superstar.
And always a contender, no matter what company he's in. I mean, he's a big man. He can brawl with you. He can wrestle you. He can even do a little bit of that stuff they call flippy stuff.
The flippy stuff.
He's a great wrestler in his own right. Another walking, talking testament to Harley Race and his skills at training young wrestlers. I mean, it's just...
Well, that being said, it's really cool to go back and watch somebody like Trevor Murdoch go to a place like the NWA because of just where he came from. Of course, being trained, by Harley,
right,
as well as then going on to some place like the NWA, which that was Harley's stomping ground.
100%.
So, it's like a full circle, and that's kind of cool to see.
He's carrying on with that legacy, guys from Eldon getting out there and showing their toughness.
I believe, I think Trevor is actually I think he's from Kansas.
That's right.
I think he's a Kansas man. But trained in Eldon with Harley, of course.
Well, and he's lived here in Missouri a lot of his life too, so.
Was a tag team champion for the WWE as well. I believe with Lance Cade.
Yes. And if you only watch WWE, you might see him as just a tag team guy.
Right.
But, he's also a multi-time heavyweight champion here at World League Wrestling. And a few other places he's held titles. So he's a singles threat as well as a tag team threat.
Absolutely. He's made a heck of a good run as a singles competitor.
I mean, there he is, I think.
As a matter of fact, I believe he's on the phone. Trevor, you there?
Yep, I'm here, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Can you hear us fairly well?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Very faintly, but we'll get through it.
Hold on. Is that better?
That's better.
All right.
So how you getting along these days? You getting through this whole, did you stay home much through all of this, or?
No, I've worked every day like normal. My job, I build custom countertops. So at one point I was considered essential because people need sinks in their homes so they can, obviously wash their hands and do all their things they need to disinfect and clean. And so, yeah, I haven't missed a day of work. I mean, I've slowed down a little bit, but I haven't missed any work.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing. At least you didn't miss out on anything.
Yes. Yeah, I'm good.
So, going back to, I want to go back to your beginning. Tell us about starting out in wrestling. What first got you involved? What got you to, what put your eye on the business and where you said, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do?
I'd always been a fan of pro wrestling since I was a kid. I remember watching world-class wrestling on Sundays in St. Louis. My brother would wake me up and we'd watch. And it got to be a point where, wrestling, at that time, wasn't the easiest thing to get into. So it wasn't like I grew up and was like, yeah, man, that's what I'm going to do. That I'm for sure going to do. Because you had no idea. It was almost a mystery. You had to know somebody. Well, I went to Job Corps when I graduated high school, and when I got out, my brother had actually met somebody on the independent scene and started training and started wrestling. And when I came home from Job Corps, I went and I was doing security for him as a young guy, and before you know it, a wrestler did show up, and the promoter is looking for somebody, and he's like, "You've been training?" And he goes, I said, okay. And I had my first match. And from then on, I was a wrestler. And that's what I felt like. That's what I was. That's what defined me as a person. You know what I mean? This is what I am, and this is what I'm going to be.
Right. What year was that in?
Oh my gosh, we're talking, I graduated high school in 96. So we're talking 97. Okay. Late 97, early 98. I was wrestling for a company in St. Louis called CSWA, Central States Wrestling Alliance.
Okay.
And, just a young guy that was getting trained on the go to a certain extent. I was one of those guys, yeah, man, I'm a wrestler. I'm only wrestling like once a month. Maybe once a month. I really, the best thing I could do at that time in my career was I could sell really well and I could bump really well because I always just, I don't know why, I always enjoyed bumping and I could do it really well. It's funny though, that transition there, I got to work for a promoter that, kind of a funny story, funny but not, it's funny now but wasn't then. My brother and I drive to Arkansas to wrestle for this promoter. I won't throw his name out there because I don't want to throw him under the bus, but it was an 8-hour drive there. And we had spent, I know for sure, I had spent the last bit of money that I had in the world in gas to get to this show. I do the show. I wrestle 3 times because they were doing quote-unquote TV in the area, and they got time to pay, and the promoter gave me like $6.72, and that was my cut.
Wow.
Because, great kid, the house was light tonight, blah, 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 and I was still pretty green to the business, and I'm just like, holy shit, like, what am I going to do to get home? And literally, I made it home gas-wise, my brother and I, with the pennies that I had, I don't know about you, but I had a truck at the time, and any time I had change in my pocket, I threw it in this cup that I had in my truck, and I mean, it was full, and that's literally what I made, what I used at gas stations, paying them in change and fuel to make it home.
Wow.
And that promoter later on down the road had a connection with Harley, and he felt bad about the situation, and he was the one that introduced me to Harley.
That's where I was going to go next with that was how you got hooked up with Harley. So that's this promoter was actually knew Harley when Harley was starting World Legion Wrestling in Springfield, Missouri, with Dave Marquez and a couple other gentlemen.
and it was at Remington's. They were filming out of Remington's, and Bill got me an opportunity just to wrestle for him. It was maybe not so much an opportunity to wrestle, but just at least have Harley look at me. It was funny. They were at a Motel 6, and we were staying in the same motel, and we got a call that Harley wanted all the guys in our book downstairs. Mm-hmm. And so I come running down to the lobby, and there's Harley and Gordon Soley sitting at a table with a fifth of vodka in between them, putting together filling in the rest of the card for the night for that TV. And they were looking for somebody to wrestle Valentine, and Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Harley looked up and down the road, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You got a license, kid?" And I said, "Yes, sir, yes, sir." And he goes, "You're going to be wrestling Valentine tonight." I said, "Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir."
Wow.
And that was the first name, big name I had ever worked in my life. And, I went out there, and kind of a funny story about this is Valentine was going to be really kind to me. He was going to give me some spots in the match where it's going to make me look good. And so as we're going up to the Gorilla, Valentine and I are talking about the match, and Harley overhears what we're saying. And he looks at Valentine, and he goes, "Valentine, the kid doesn't get shit." And he said, "Okay." And of course, I'm not going to argue. I'm like, "All right, change of plans. I'm just getting my fucking ass kicked tonight." And that was my intro to really, Harley race, and my, "Hey, how you doing?" That was my intro to Harley.
Man. You actually, it was kind of funny. It was kind of eerie. You did a very good impression of Harley there.
Oh, dude, I back in the day, when I was, one of the guys, I used to call him as Harley just to kind of get his goat a little bit. I call him up and I go, "I need to speak to Harley." And he goes, "This is Harley." And I'd be like, "No, this is Harley. I need to speak to Harley Race." And it would just get him fired up. "Who the fuck is this on the phone?" And I'd be like, "I told you, it's fucking Harley Race." And and finally he caught on, "Trevor, when I see you at the school, you're going to regret this."
Did you ever get the famous shock treatment from him?
Oh man, yeah, dude. You gotta understand. I was one of the first guys that Harley had in that school. There was me, and there was Matt Murphy. So all these stories you hear about the guys getting the stun guns or Harley, squeezing their hands until they drop to their knees. We were the first. We were the guinea pigs. Me and Matt Murphy were literally the first two students Harley had at that school when he opened up the doors. When the school started originally, it was in Springfield, Missouri, in a boxing school. Harley rented out 2 hours of time at this boxing school, so there were no boxers in there. But we trained and took bumps in a boxing ring, not in a wrestling ring. Oh. If you've ever been into a boxing ring, it's no different than concrete. That surface is intent to be stiff and hard, so the boxers got some, when they punch, they've got a stiff, to push off of, and it's meant to be stiff and sturdy. And so Matt and I are in this boxing school that has no AC, and intentionally they didn't have heat in there because they wanted their boxers to sweat, so we were sweating. We were in there taking bumps in this boxing school for 3 months. We were in there going through the heat in a boxing school for 3 months. I puked every single day in that boxing ring, school, every day. And Harley he'd laugh because when I would run out of the school, run out, puke, I'd get a bucket of water, splash it on the puke in the street, and I'd run in and I would catch up with my calisthenics. And we did that for 3 months until I came home one day. Me, Derek Stone, Matt Murphy, Grizz, Derek Stone's wife, Gracia, my brother, Johnny D, and Skippy, the referee, we all lived in a house together with 6 dogs, nonetheless. And we did that for 3 to 4 months until one day I came home from work, and the guys were like, "We're moving." You know, I'm like, well, "Where's everybody moving to?" Like, "We're moving to Eldon, Missouri. Harley's got a school. Found a building down there. He found a ring, and the school's going to be moved down there." And so I ended up spending another 3 months in Springfield because I had no place to live down here in Eldon. I had no job. So I was traveling back and forth every day, an hour and a half after work, come down, train, and then drive an hour and a half back to Springfield, go to bed, wake up, go to work. And you did that 4 and 5 days a week until it just got to be too much. You know what I mean? There was a point where I actually stopped coming to training for like 3 or 4 days, and Harley had called me, and he was like, "Why aren't you at training?" And who am I? I was hurt. I was sore. I wasn't hurt. I was sore. I was tired. I didn't want to make the drive. But how am I going to whine and complain to Harley race? You know what I mean? So when he called me and he goes, "Why aren't you at training?" I was just honest with him. I said, "Well, I don't have a reason." I said, shit, I'm driving an hour and a half every day, or 3 hours every day there and back, plus work. And I said, I'm just tired. I'm sore. And he goes, I understand, but you need to get your fucking ass in training. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, that's when he suggested, he goes, "Maybe you need to figure out your living situation down here if you want to continue to go to the school." And I said, that does make complete sense. And so I started, trying to figure out place to live here in Eldon and some sort of work to make some sort of income. And that's what I did.
Man. And, everything comes full circle, too, because you're right back working with David Marquez again.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Him and I have had conversations about, because that was the beginning when he was working there with Harley. That was the beginning of his wrestling as well, too.
Yeah.
And so for us to kind of split off and go our own ways and still come back together, there's a really strong relationship between him and I. I love Dave Marquez to death because he's seen my ups and downs. Mm-hmm. He was the only guy that when I would see him at WWE and he was in the locker room, I remember specifically going up to him and having a conversation because Dave's a promoter. I said, when all this is done, just don't forget about me. And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Dude, eventually this ride's going to be over with and I'm going to need some work." And I was like, "Just don't forget about me." And he goes, "Don't worry." And he never did. You know what I mean? And Dave's just 100% a good dude. Man, I love him to death. Good people, good talent on TV.
Dave's been he's been a friend to World League Wrestling. I've spoke to him a few times about things, and I know the office has spoke to him a few times about things, and he's pointed us in the right direction. He's a good person to run ideas off of. So
yes, very, very honest with you too. And that's what you need in this business. Sometimes, everybody has the best intentions in mind, but the idea just doesn't come across or translate through TV. Dave was very honest with you and what he thinks and how he feels, and that's what you need. You don't get, believe it or not, you don't get a lot of that in the wrestling business. It's surprising, but you don't get a lot of that.
I believe that. Now you went, correct me if I'm wrong, you went straight from WLW to TV. Is that correct?
Yes, I was one of the few guys that I couldn't tell you what the parking lot looked like at OVW. One day I'm wrestling for Harley. The next day or 3 days later, I've got vignettes debuting on WWE Raw.
How did that come about?
It's a little surreal. There was originally when I went up to go wrestle, Harley always, when the guys were in town, were, they have what we can call local wrestlers that WWE uses for either security or that guy that you don't know who he is was wrestling Superstar in the match, fucking Boyd Boyd Johnson against fucking John Cena. Pardon my language, but you that local guy. And Harley had gotten me an opportunity to go up there and do a tryout for WWE. But you got to think at this time, I had probably been up there 8 or 9 different times and wrestled in front of WWE. I'd done different skits for them, and they had paid me no attention. Like there was never, there was always you did a good job, but then never a callback or an interest to go any farther than what I did while they were in town.
Yeah.
And I had just come back from spending 6 months in the Noah dojo, doing 500 squats a day, 300 push-ups a day, 3-minute neck bridges, between 100 and 150 bumps a day. And a lot of times we were doing that before shows, which is extremely difficult trying to go into a match when you're already blown up and tired. But it toughened you up, and it made you, if you want it, you just got to keep pushing, and made me stronger. But when I went up for that tryout, I had planned, I really wasn't excited about it. The only thing that excited me was $250 that I was going to get paid in catering. I had planned my career to be in Japan. You know what I mean? That's where I just spent all that time in the dojo. That's where I'm going to, that's where, and you could be a guy that didn't have abs in Japan.
Right.
And still wrestle well and still get over and it not be a concern. Whereas WWE, if you look, they want guys that are jacked, and I respect them for that. That's what they wanted. That's what they want on the program. I just didn't fit the bill. So I essentially, after time, I realized that it made me my future a whole lot clearer in my mind. Okay, quit being upset and bummed out that WWE doesn't want you. Let's focus on a place that will want you. And that was Japan. So Harley gets me to try out, and I'm just excited to make $250 and eat catering. And I see Benoit out by the ring doing 500 squats, and that was his warm up before shows.
Wow!
So I wanted to get his attention. I wanted to talk to him because I knew how over he was in Japan, and I knew I knew how tight him and Harley were as friends. And I thought maybe if I could talk to him, just get some advice about Japan, maybe even, get him out, get a phone call. Hey, this is Harley's guy, just trying to, be smart about my career, So I go into the ring and I start doing some of the Japanese stretches that I learned while I was in the dojo. And seeing an American do a butterfly stretch where your legs are completely flat against the mat it stands out, and he knew where that kind of exercise came from. So he came over, and he just was he was nice, and he goes, hey, have you been training in Japan? That was just kind of like my lead-in to just kind of lay out my resume. Yes, sir, I've been in the dojo for the last 6 months for Noah, under Masawa and Kobashi. Harley Race trained me. And we just talked for 10 or 15 minutes about Japan and stuff. And he goes, do you got a match tonight? And I said, no, sir, I don't. He goes, just wait right here. And 10 minutes later, he comes back and he goes, all right, man, you got a match tonight. They're going to be watching, buddy. Good luck, man. It was nice meeting you. And walks away. And so I went from honestly walking around there not giving a shit. I'd been up there. They didn't want me, I was completely okay with that. I was just going to be me and have fun with it. To now I've got the attention of the people that can offer me a job that I've been wanting. Now they're going to be watching. Yeah. And I ended up wrestling Rob Conway that night. And I went in there. I knew what my job was to make him look like $1 million. And that's what I did. I went in there and I made him look like $1 million. And we came back through the curtain, and Rob told Johnny Ace, the talent relations guy, he goes, man, that cat can work. You can definitely tell he's a Harley guy. Good job tonight. And Johnny Ace goes, hey, I want you to come back tomorrow night, which that's when, they taped SmackDown. Even though they played it for, I think it was Friday at the time, even though it was Thursday at the time. They taped it on Tuesday. He goes, I want you to come to SmackDown tomorrow night, and we're going to have you wrestle again. And I was like, right on, another $250 in catering. You know, I wasn't really expecting a job. I was just, that's $500 2 days. You know, that's 2 days, $500, independent worker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was struggling to pay rent.
That's better than $25 a show.
Oh yeah, man, hot dog and a handshake.
Yeah. Sorry, the house was light, buddy. You know?
WWE, it's a gourmet hot dog.
Oh man, it was, and there were several of them. You know what I mean?
Hey, look, we have gourmet hot dogs at World League Wrestling on our shows now. Come on.
I've been to. Come on now, man. I'm OG WLW. Don't lie to me.
Actually, we saw you. Actually, we didn't see you. It wasn't that long ago. You came down for the Harley race. We had a memorial show.
Yes.
Yeah, he actually saved my butt. So
that's a whole different.
But you know, actually, we were talking about before the show started. Martin and I were sitting here talking about, and we were talking about how when I watch you on NWA now, it's almost like a throwback. I see a lot of Harley, and it's really neat for you. And the other part of that is it's really neat to see the circle when you go, okay, Trevor Murdoch has come to NWA, which was Harley's. That was his home. That was his stomping ground. So that's kind of a neat little thing to come back to.
Oh, that's
for me as a fan.
One of the things that drive me. No, it's intentional. You know what I mean? That's just, it's not only. It excites me to know that this is where Harley. You know, this is the house Harley built to a certain extent at one point, and for me to be able to put that on my resume, but also for me to help build the new NWA, it feels right. I've been wrestling for 20, almost 21 years. Most of that has been under Harley's tutelage and his guidance. And now that he's not here, it almost not only feels right, but it feels like an obligation. Like it's my job to carry over what he taught me throughout these years to this new generation of NWA fans, and to help kind of do my part. The cool thing about the NWA is that there's so many different, let's say, personalities, I guess, being displayed on their program, that everybody kind of has their own slot, their own space, their own feeling. Whereas it's hard to get that now with WWE and some other companies that are out there. And with me, you get a very old school feel, but hopefully with a new school attitude to a certain extent, or a new school style to it, especially with a lot of the young guys that I'm getting a chance to get in the ring with now.
Yeah.
I have to adapt to them, and vice versa. They have to adapt to me. And it's making for an excellent product, not just for me, but for all the other wrestlers too. It's really, in my opinion, you're not going to find a more real wrestling program than NWA Power right now. I mean, from the heart, real, honest promos cut on the fly with what's going on, in-depth stories that are telling you about characters. It's a very real program, and that's what wrestling needs, is a real program out there for people to not only understand, but for the wrestlers to open up and to express themselves. Too many times you get into situations with companies and they tell you all of what you shouldn't do. With the NWA, they go out there and they say, go out there and do you. Be you. Go over there, get over. If you want these people happy with you and cheering and going, you go out there and you get it. And that's a very open, very exciting, what's the word I'm looking for? Very freeing situation when someone's taking the reins and just kind of pulling them off you and go, do what we know you can do.
It's kind of like what? I'm not being scripted? Okay. I get to be me?
Well, yeah, that's...
That's an old school way of doing
Harley. It. Yeah, well, and that's the thing even with Harley. He pushed hard for his group of guys, certainly, especially in the beginning, because if you look at the history of WLW, Harley had a very good way of taking like the best of the group of guys and making him the lead and the trainer to train that next group of guys, and that group of guys, the top guy would be the trainer, and pass those lessons of wrestling and what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing in and out of the ring. Harley was very good about transitioning that throughout the generations. And with Harley, he always pushed for us to, what's the best way I can put this where I'm not just completely breaking kayfabe, just call it on the fly.
Yeah.
Go out there and experience and create magic out there. There's no way that you can sit here in the back and put together a match start to finish. And this favorite thing, and I'm going to drop an F-bomb here, but it's Harley. You're not a goddamn psychic. You don't know what they're feeling and thinking out there. So the only way to create that magic is to have confidence in yourself and to call it out there and let that happen out there.
Yeah.
Kind of have to.
That's where true magic happens. Yes, that's where true magic happens, in my opinion. And I've seen it, and I've experienced it myself. Things that just get kind of dropped into your lap in the ring, and you're able to react off them, and the people see it, and you interact with those people.
Well, it's
almost
more
a golden egg.
It's more realistic because you get that natural reaction, that natural movement, that natural response.
Yes. And a lot of guys are afraid to do that now because they don't understand. A lot of guys nowadays don't listen to the people. There's a difference. There's a difference from when you walk into the ring and you hear people cheering and they're, yay, Trevor kick his ass, blah, blah, blah. There's a difference from hearing that to being in the ring and you're in the middle of a match and you hear what the pulse of the people, the heartbeat of the people and what they need at that moment in that match. Mm-hmm. It's a skill. And when you're calling your match in the back, you're only going from one thing to the next because that's what you planned. But out there, if you're going on the fly and you feel it and you hear the heart of the people, it'll virtually tell you what you need to do. Mm-hmm. and how to carry this match on. There was a time that when we were wrestling for Harley full time, and you got to think Harley's first 5 years, he averaged 78 shows a year. Now you got to think about how many 78 shows for an independent out there running. And this was before, ROH hadn't started. ROH, we were running for 2 years before ROH even opened up and started running shows. So you've got one independent running across Illinois, Missouri, sometimes Nebraska, 78 shows a year.
That's a hell of a grind.
We were, oh man. But for young guys, we didn't care. We loved it because we were actually making okay money.
Well, you were doing the thing,
Yeah, I mean, I still had, and a lot of the other guys had a side job because it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. But Harley was running a lot of shows back then. And you had to get, it was almost a sink or swim situation back then, because if you weren't getting over, you're not, that's the best way I can put it. Like, Harley needs to draw off his guys. If you're not getting over and you're not putting in the work, maybe wrestling's not for you,
Right.
you know. And that was, a lot of guys made it, a lot of guys didn't make it.
I know to this
It was
day.
just
I know to this day that a lot of the guys that we train, when they go to try out somewhere else to go do something, and they hear, "Oh, you were trained at World League Wrestling? All right, then you're a Harley guy," and they get, automatically they're expected to live up to a certain standard,
Yes.
even today.
Yes.
well, that's intentional. I mean, that's how it should be. And you're going to hear this from every generation of guys, but in my opinion, we had the toughest training than anybody else because we were the guinea pigs for Harley's training. He knew what he wanted, just didn't quite know how to get there. So with Matt and I, we were training 5 and 6 days a week. When the school was open, we were at that school and we were in the ring training. And it was nothing for us to have an hour to an hour and a half cardio session before we even got into the ring. And at that time, Harley had Doug Brolin, his nickname was Skippy, former Marine, former amateur wrestler, good guy, had his quirks just like anybody else. But he was a referee, and he was a smaller guy. He was one of those guys who always wanted to be a wrestler, but knew that he just didn't have the height for it. But he was just a cardio god. Like this young guy, this little guy just had insane cardio. He would stand there and smoke a cigarette while we're doing squats. He would be smoking a cigarette, drinking, and had a cup of coffee in one hand and smoking a cigarette while we're doing squats, and he was doing squats with us.
Wow.
And you can only imagine this little room with the trainer doing cardio, smoking a cigarette. You've got Harley and his wife BJ sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette. They're all smoking in this training facility, and it's not a huge room, and we're trying to do cardio in it. It was it was just how it was. You know what I mean? None of us were all going to fucking start bitching and going, "Oh, Harley's smoking while we're training." It's Harley race, man. Just suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up. It's all nails and yeah, it's all nails and glass, man. You're not going to get pampered.
Yeah, and not to mention we carried a certain amount of respect, knowing that we were the first group of guys of Harleys, and we were also going to be the example for the next group of guys. We were the guys that Harley be like, "This is what I want you to be doing, and what I want you to look like, and this is what you should be doing." Back then, it was when we had the school down here in Eldon. The Eldon school there, the very original one, had a storefront window. So we would leave the door open. But when we were in there bumping in the ring, as people are walking by shopping or driving with their windows open, they're constantly hearing these groans and screams and kicks and stomps. And I mean, you guys know what a wrestling ring sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine it in a small room and it echoing out this door down Main Street.
They're killing someone in there.
And you would, huh?
I said, they're killing someone in there.
Oh, yeah. And you constantly have got people, like walking by, and then they'd walk by, and then you'd almost see like the brakes put on. Even though you didn't see them, they'd walk past the window. The brakes have locked up, and then they backpedal. And they're peering through the window, seeing, young guys just beating the snot out of each other. And every once in a while, they'd wait too long. They'd stay too long, and somebody'd yell kayfabe, and we'd stop, and we'd wait till they left, and then we'd go back to doing what we were doing. But that also bred an environment for every tough guy in town that was third belt judo, king, tough guy to come into the school and go up to Harley and go, "I think I can do this wrestling stuff. I want to be a wrestler." And Harley laughing, going, "Okay." And they'd be like, "But you got to go through a tryout." And they'd be like, "Oh, of course, no problem." And they'd come in there and we would run them through cardio But then Harley would have us get in the ring and amateur wrestle with these guys. And some of them were legitimate tough guys. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and say they were all stooges. They were legitimate tough guys that have just, you know, you guys know, there's just guys out there that are just oblivious to pain.
Yeah.
But we would have to go in there and amateur these guys and stretch these guys. And, you know, there is no losing on our end. You know what I mean? There is no this guy getting the best of us. It's not.
Oh, Harley would have whooped you clean.
Oh, yeah. That's not a thought at all. Like,
failure is not an option
this
here,
guy's
guys.
me. Yes. And so we're in there just cranking on these guys, and you'd look up, and after about 4 or 5 minutes, the guy's huffing and puffing because his only objective, Harley tell him, he go, listen, all you've got to do is get my guy off of you. And that's, you know, that's the guy be like, oh, that's all I got to do is like just get him off me. And they think, oh, this is easy. Well, we've been doing amateur wrestling every single day of training with our counterparts who are in fantastic shape because they've been doing it. We're on these guys like spider monkeys. Like there's just, I mean, we've had so much, I mean, it's nothing for us. These guys are nothing, not compared to wrestling guys like Matt, Derek, who's got you beat by, 60, 70 pounds sometimes, depending on who you're working with. And then Harley, you'd look up and Harley look at you and he'd throw you the sign and crank on something to make the guy tap. And you'd put a front face lock on or, grab the hammer lock and just lean into it on the shoulder and the guys just start squirming to tap.
Great.
And, Harley come up to him and go, you say you want to be a wrestler, show up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Inevitably, they would never show up the next day.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to tell everybody listening, if you've got a question for Trevor, type it into the chat. That's all you got to do, and I'll get it to him. So, there you go.
Well, I got something I'd like to ask too. So,
Go ahead, Martin.
Okay.
I believe your first time winning the heavyweight title at World League was against Meng.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what the mindset is going into a match like that. I mean, because you got Harley outside the ring watching, and then you got Meng, and both of them, neither one of them you really want to disappoint.
Right.
No. I was okay. Well, the crazy thing about it was I had seen Meng wrestle some of the. Harley had brought him in before, and Meng just looks mean. I mean, he's a guy who makes you believe. So I remember coming in on like a Monday or a Tuesday, and Harley, tells me, Trevor, come into my office. And he had that yellow notebook pad that he would always have the card on. I don't know if you guys ever know, but Harley has this yellow notebook pad that he would completely, he would have the whole year's card on this notebook pad because he wouldn't tear the paper out of the card. He would just flip it over and go to the next sheet. And I come in, and he's got his pencil, and he's tapping his pencil on the card, on this paper. And he looks down, and he goes, look who I've got in the main event. And it's Meng against me. And not only do I got to wrestle Meng once, but I've got to wrestle Meng twice. Harley's got him in for the weekend. And Meng's the champion at the time. So I'm like, man, I'm stoked. I'm excited. I didn't think Meng would hurt me. I was more nervous about stepping up because this is a big deal to me, and it's a big deal for everybody. Number one, I'm going into Harley Race's main event. I'm his main event. I'm the one that's going to be on the poster that he's selling this show for. Not to mention, I'm not in the ring with just some no-name guy. I'm in the ring with Meng Haku, somebody that when people look at the poster, they're not going to look at him, and then they're going to look at me. I wanted to perform and be to that level. Not to mention, The first show was, I believe, in Warsaw, and the second show was in Eldon, our hometown, where I lived at, where I see people at the grocery store, where I see people at Walmart, where I see people coming in and out of school. This is my home. So not only am I going to be wrestling in the main event, I'm wrestling the main event in my hometown. And, you know, the obvious thought process for a young guy then is, well, I'm going to lose. So, okay, how can I lose where I still, you know, look strong? You know what I mean? In my head.
Right.
And you quickly realize, wait a minute. All right, understand where I'm at on the totem pole in this business. I'm just going to shut my mouth and listen to this motherfucker. That's all I'm going to do. There's nothing. I'm not going to. You know, he wasn't do this, do that. I wrestled. It was funny. The first time I wrestled him was in Warsaw, and I went to a 20-minute Broadway. And I was so nervous about the match that I ended up blowing up in the middle of the match. And at the end of it, you know, he carried me all the way through it. But I was, oh my God, I got another night with this guy. And I just couldn't. I blew up. You know, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And the second night, Harley comes up to me before the show, and the show's going on. Sorry, and I just assume that the finish is going to be either the same or Haku's going to beat me. You know what I mean? And Harley comes up to me and he goes, "Kid, tonight you're going over on Haku. I'm putting the title on you."
Wow.
And I'm like,
how does that make you feel?
What? Well, I was just in shock. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh man. Like, first off, I'm going over on Ming somehow. Like, now, how are we going to do this and make this believable? Come on, fellas. Let's be realistic about that. Secondly, you know, now I'm top dog. Like, I'm the leader of the show. Like, this is like when you're putting posters together, this is my world champion.
All right.
Like, pressure stepped up, you know, tenfold. Not to mention my brother, who got me into the business, was actually a wrestler on that show and was a lumberjack outside of the ring during my main event match. So not only am I in Eldon, my hometown, wrestling Ming, I've got my brother, my shoot brother, outside the ring who helped get me and brought me up to the business, out there watching, with Harley watching too.
Wow.
And sidebar, little funny note, my wife, who I'm currently, my only wife, was there that night sitting in the front row with her boyfriend watching that show. I've got the taped footage of that show, and my wife, who I didn't know at the time, was actually at that show sitting in front row watching me win the world title.
That's cool.
Harley's world title. Then later on down the road, I ended up meeting her. You know, she's now my wife, and I've got 3 beautiful children.
All right, so I've got something I'm supposed to ask you, and this comes directly from Derek Stone.
Derek Stone, oh my.
He says, ask Trevor about getting slapped by Abdullah the Butcher. Fun story.
Oh my. Derek enjoys this story. We have one of our first shows in Eldon, and Harley books Abdullah the Butcher, and we're all young guys, just, wow, man, that's Abdullah the Butcher, that's badass, that's cool. We do the show in Eldon, and we start, I think that was kind of like the beginning of our tradition, and anytime we would do a show in Eldon, we would all go to a local bar and drink and have a good time. Well, we went to this bar called the Watering Hole, and it had karaoke there. So all the guys are there. There's fans in there. Harley's there with DJ and Abdullah. And Abdullah's got an early flight, like I think it was either a 6 a.m. flight or it might have been earlier than that, but he couldn't stay that night. So he's drinking there, but he's just like pounding these doubles. I mean, just wham, wham, one right after another, one right after another.
He's a big old boy.
He's probably had a good 10 or 12 of them, you know. So we're all drinking, and there's karaoke there. So I hop up, and I decide to do karaoke. And I'm singing, and in the middle of me singing, Harley turns around, and they're just watching me. And I'm not doing bad, actually. And I get done with the song, and Harley, takes his finger and starts waving me over. And I sit down in the booth, and BJ's next to me, and we're talking, and Harley's proceeding to tell me that I'm going to start singing my music to the ring. I'm going to be a cowboy. I'm going to go back to the road. Out of nowhere, dude. Out of nowhere, I get hooked, punched, wham, right in my jaw. I mean, smoked. Out of nowhere. And I look up, and it was Abdullah. And he goes, "You were sitting next to my wife. Get the fuck away from my wife." And I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" And Harley gets up, Abby, what the fuck are you doing? Get the fuck away from my guy. And, literally, I stand up, and I'm like, oh, my God, what the hell was that? Abdullah just punched me in the face for no reason. And Harley's trying to calm him down, and BJ's going, I don't know. He's crazy. I don't know. If you knew BJ, she had this. I don't know what he's doing. But that's the story of the night that I got punched by Abdullah the Butcher. I forgot all about that, Derek. Man, that's insane. Amazing what other people remember.
Derek is still the World League Wrestling Heavyweight Champion.
And he's the top guy. Sidebar, what a lot of people don't know is Derek is the one that actually physically trained me. Derek was the guy that was in the ring with me, sweating with me, pulling me off to the side, going, "Hey, you ought to try this, you ought to do that." Harley was the leader of the show. But if you don't have that guy that has the experience, there was a reason why Harley made him his first trainer and his the trainer, because Derek knows his shit. Derek has the ability to be able to see outside of a story and be able to tell and be able to give you information to maybe look at that story and to be able to understand it more so you can express what you want in the ring. Not to mention his wrestling knowledge is just unfathomable. That guy, there's never been a time that I've ever been able to bring something to him and he go, "Well, okay, what if you thought about it like this?" Derek does not get enough credit for how many guys that are in this business today that are good, that are good wrestlers. He does not get enough credit on how much influence he's had.
He still
so many guys across the Midwest.
He still sits in the dressing room even today, back there with our young lions, and is passing on, ideas and wisdom. One more question that came across. Ronnie wants to know, if you had a chance to do a final run as World League Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, would you do it?
Yeah, I think I would. I would just, there's a few guys that I still would like. I would like to have another run with Derek.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot in the gas tank for him and I. We've had our little storylines throughout the years, and it feels like, we had one in WLW a little bit in the early days, then in Metro, we had some time to really open up and get a little bit more in depth when it comes to characters and aggression. Actually, again, I need to give Derek props. The hardcore match that I had with Derek in Metro Pro was one of the matches that got me over more than anything else that I did in there. The sympathy that he was able to create, the hatred that he was able to create for me to the fans. There's no way that I don't think I could have done that with anybody else in there. So Derek gets all that credit as well. So if I had a chance, I would like to have another run. But I would like to have it with Derek and then see how that would play out.
That would be great. That'd be great. Well,
I'd love to ref that.
Yeah, would you?
I would. I'd love to ref that match.
How can you sit there in a
Well,
ring?
I bet you would.
In
If
a
you were
ring like
lucky
that.
enough, one day you might.
If you're sitting in a ring with two guys like that, with Trevor and Derek, how can you not be excited about being in there? You know,
Well, I'm excited every time. It's
Yeah.
always it's a big rush for me just to get in there and ref. I mean, I miss it horribly.
Yeah. So we didn't get a whole. I mean, we kind of. I mean, we went through a whole lot of stuff today and really had a good talk. But currently, you're at NWA, and what's just in the end here? Just kind of sum up what's going on with you in NWA. What's your what's the outlook? What's the projection? How's that working out for you?
What sucks is right now the NWA itself is in a certain amount of a holding pattern when it comes
Sure.
to wrestling. Fans and wrestlers alike, the safety is first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to work for somebody who actually cares about making sure that everybody's going to be able to be healthy and be safe.
Yeah.
It sucks that it's been on hold for the extent of we all want to wrestle. NWA Power is a very special thing. And for me, I finally felt like I was the key. I always felt like in the wrestling business, I've been a round peg in a square world.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't always fit in. I've had my place, but I haven't always fit in. With the NWA, I fit in 100%. I do miss it greatly. And right now we're in with the world the way it is, we're in, unprecedented times. Everybody's going to have to change. And I think, I don't think the world's going to go back to the complete normal that we thought it was. And I think that there's going to have to be a lot of changes to how you come across to the people when it comes to platforms and YouTube channels. Until we can get fans every 18 inches, guys,
Right.
it's going to be hard to put on a real good wrestling show, because I give credit to AEW and WWE. They're going out there. They have to put on shows with no fans in the stands. I give them credit for going out there and trying. I just think it's really, really missing something, not only from a fan's perspective at home, but from a wrestler's perspective too, because the fans are just as important to what we do out there as you as a referee or the guy who's playing the music on the right time. And all those things come together is what makes that an event. And when you take out one of those bits, it really affects the whole show. So I hope that we can get back to a time where we can have crowds every 18 inches. And when that does, I'll be ready to hop in the ring and fulfill a certain amount of a legacy that I think and an obligation, and as a representation to Harley in the NWA. Until then, I'm currently working on my own YouTube channel, trying to bring content to people, let them know what it's like to be a 41-year-old pro wrestler that has no wrestling. And I've realized I have no hobbies because I've done nothing but wrestle my whole life. So look
Makes
for
sense.
that to be coming soon. But that's the world we live in right now, guys. And until we can fix all that stuff, that's what, wrestlers, I think, are going to have to start doing now. They're going to start creating their own platforms to get out there in front of the people to let them know who we still are and what we're still doing.
Well, now you said, you were doing your own YouTube. Right now NWA's doing this new show called Carneyland. Can we expect to see you on that maybe?
Oh, you'll eventually see me on that. Yes, that's the thing. That's the cool thing again with the NWA too. Instead of where most people would be like, "Oh shit, we can't have shows. Let's just close up shop." They look at this as, okay, this is another obstacle that we have to overcome, and so they've decided to take a route where, okay, we're going to give people content to still let them know that we're still here. But also, here's our characters and here's our people in different lights to entertain the folks. Because that's ultimately what we are, guys. We're We're entertainment. Our job is to take the people and take them out of what's going on in reality at that moment in time, for them to forget about the bills that are coming up, the spouse that they're having a fight with, the job that they're unhappy with. It's our job to just take them out of that realm of reality and bring them into our realm of reality. That's our job. So if
Absolutely.
we can't do that, stepping into a ring and beating the shit out of each other, well, we'll just figure out another way to do it.
Makes sense to me.
Right.
And
Trevor.
that's the world we're living in now.
Yeah. Well, we got to wind this down because this hour went by fast. That was great.
Dude,
Thanks for coming.
I'm a great interview, bro. I don't know if you know this.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, because I didn't really have to do much. You just kind of carried the whole show. You carried this match for us between us. And,
That's why I want to ref him.
it was a good dance.
I'm a Harley race guy. That's my job. I carry everybody else I get in the ring with.
I'll leave with this. Ronnie says, I'd love to see Trevor as the NWA heavyweight champion. That would be a full circle moment for Trevor, being a Harley guy, wearing the 10 pounds of gold just like Harley did.
Yes.
And I will say this, because I'm not going to say if you become champion. I'm going to say when you become champion, come back and talk to us again on the show, would you?
Oh, that's no problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet, guys. Take care. Bye.
Wow, that was a great interview.
Great Harley stories. You know,
Yeah, Ming.
it's always fun talking with Trevor.
Getting punched by Abby. That's something. So, wow, that was. He can carry on a conversation like we didn't have to do much. He just kind of told the whole story.
He answered most of my questions just talking to us before I could even talk. So,
well, fantastic. Former WLW heavyweight champion, former WLW Tag Team Champion, former WWE Tag Team Champion, and now an NWA Superstar.
and probably going to be a champion there too.
I would guarantee it. I would put money on it. So, with that being said, thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to see you right back here next Sunday at 4 o'clock Central for WLW Amplify. I'm CT Harrison.
I'm Martin Kadish.
And we love you, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. We'll see you next week.